Without further ado, I will invite up Flora to talk about our indicators update.
Thanks, Adrienne. I'm Flora Kaplan. I'm the Indicators Program Manager for SSMC. And this launch, I'm really excited to announce that we've completed the first step in a redesign of our Indicators website. And this is what our new homepage looks like. And here we're trying to really highlight all of the many topics that we cover, like climate, population, and transportation. And throughout the year, we're going to add new data, and we're also going to update the data that we've been reporting on for the past 20 years that shows the interrelations between economy, equity, and the environment. So today, I'm going to talk about a few of the indicators that we've updated this time for the winter. And then some of those are included in the printed summary in front of you. And then I'm going to give an overview of our first batch of research on the cost of living. So every winter we look at the reports on population figures in the county and also in the region. 2016 estimates show that the net migration in San Mateo County, which is the difference between the residents moving in and the residents moving out, decreased for the first time since 2010. And San Mateo County was the only county in the Bay Area to show this loss in net migration. It means that people are leaving. However, our population did show an increase overall because of births in the county. And our population is projected to grow by over 100,000 by 2040, and the Bay Area's population is projected to grow by over 1 million. Looking at housing, we updated this chart that's in your printed summary on the income needed for annual housing costs, and we found that there were drastic differences compared to last year. Between 2014 and 2015, the median income in San Mateo County decreased by 6%, while the median home price increased by 19%, condo price increased by 15%, and the rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom increased by 10%. So this means that households that earn the median income in the county can't afford to purchase a home. But housing construction is on the rise to accommodate this influx of workers that we've been experiencing. In 2015, there were over 1,400 building permits, which is the highest number since 2002, when there was over 1,500 building permits. Looking at water, air, and waste, a year ago, all of California showed some level of drought. And though the drought conditions have improved since January of last year, the long-term impacts on groundwater supplies persist, and the drought continues in the Central Valley where much of our agriculture is grown. This state has a historically arid climate, and coupled with climate change and changes in precipitation, it's likely to make drought conditions more common in the future. So an increase in rainfall helps with the drought, but stormwater is the largest source of pollution in our waterways as it carries untreated contaminants from our streets and wastewater treatment plants to our beaches. So here and also in our printed report, we have this beach report card from Heal the Bay that shows that indeed the pollution in beaches has increased since last year. So this is just a sample of the indicators that we updated this year, and I encourage you to take a look at our redesigned website, read the full content, and also our new content on the cost of living, which I'm going to just briefly touch on now. We chose to focus on the cost of living this year because it impacts the lives of so many residents, and it highlights the interconnections between us and the larger region, which is increasingly becoming urbanized. With your input, we plan to explore these implications and how these shifting dynamics are affecting our neighborhoods, our health, our environment, our culture. And so we have an interactive display back there. I hope that you participate or fill in a survey. Right now, we're focusing on economic equity, but later in the year, we're going to explore housing, transportation, work-life balance. So to start off, let's look at the Consumer Price Index, which is commonly used as an indicator of the cost of living in a region, and it's based on a survey of the normal products and services that people buy. So we see that the CPI has increased in metropolitan areas all over the county in the past 10 years, but San Francisco area has increased the most compared to New York, Los Angeles, and Seattle. And according to a recent report by JobTrain, one of our exhibitors, the cost of living in the Bay Area is now over twice the national average. So income inequality has also increased alongside the cost of living. And here we have a chart that shows the Gini coefficient, which is a ratio that's used to measure the level of income or wealth inequality in an area. And the census data shows that the Gini has increased by almost 5% in San Mateo County, which is more than the increase that was seen in San Francisco and Santa Clara counties, our neighbors. And according to the County of San Mateo Human Services Agency, 1/3 of families and 1/5 of individuals have struggled to meet their basic needs in 2016. So in our county and then in metropolitan areas all over the nation, we're seeing a shrinking of the middle class. Reports show that over the past 25 years, many of our county's middle income households have been replaced with lower and upper income households. In 2013, the county showed the largest wage gap compared to neighboring San Francisco and Santa Clara, with the income of the top 1% accounting for 31% of the total income earned in the county. So another way to look at that is the top 1% is making 62 times as much as the remaining 99%. So these high income levels elevate the cost of living, and in response, people of all incomes really need to consider relocating to more affordable housing markets. However, residents that earn the lowest wages can't afford to relocate in some instances, and they have to choose overcrowded or low quality housing in order to stay in the area, stay close to their jobs. Historically, a strong middle class is associated with a resilient economy and stable public services and schools that enhance access to economic mobility. And low and middle income residents tend to contribute to the economy by spending a majority of their income locally. Whereas over the past 10 years, high income residents in our region have increased philanthropy. However, a smaller portion of these funds are actually reaching our local nonprofits that provide these safety net services for people in need. So looking at jobs and wages, residents are affected by the cost of living at varying magnitudes depending on their income. So a larger portion of a low wage income must be used to meet basic needs and pay sales tax compared to high wage incomes. And in effect, the price of goods and services are higher for low wage earners who often sacrifice and have to sacrifice one need for another. So we gathered data on average income for various jobs and created this sample budget in effort to calculate the minimum monthly income needed to live in the county. So this is just kind of a rough estimate, but it indicates that people in food service, childcare, and counseling most likely don't earn enough to meet their basic needs, and they might have to work additional jobs. The California minimum wage is just $10.50 per hour, which is the equivalent of $1,820 per month working full time. Recently, the city of San Mateo passed an ordinance to raise their minimum wage to $12 an hour, and then that's going to go to $15 an hour in 2019. So that's a real benefit to the people who are really making the lowest wages in the county. So although our county has the lowest unemployment rate in the Bay Area, these figures don't account for the underemployed, people who are working part-time or who are independent contractors. And in fact, we saw, we have a table or a graphic on our website that shows that between 2009 and 2015, part-time work increased and full-time work decreased in our county. So these tables on the income and education gap are included in the printed summary, so you can really take a good look at them. Often wages are correlated with education attainment, though there are noticeable income disparities by race and by gender. Looking at this income gap in education, we see that men are paid more than women and white people are paid more than people of color. The high concentration of women in low-wage occupations like food service and teaching might account for some of this wage disparity that we see across the board, but even within those occupations, men will earn 1% to 2% more than females. And on a national level, women with a college degree are less likely to pursue careers in high-wage fields like engineering or computer science. That's according to the Washington Post. And in our new prosperity and poverty section on our website, we've included a chart on the income gap between men and women by race. And when you look at this data, you see that overall, there is a $8,000 gap between men and women annually. But then there's variations by race. For white men and women, the gap is 16,000 a year. And then for Blacks and Latinos, the gap is 2,000 a year. I'd like to touch a little bit on the topic of poverty in San Mateo County. The current poverty rate is 8.4%, and 53% of these residents speak a language other than English at home. And the majority of working poor in San Francisco metro area are Latino and Black. So these numbers are calculated, the poverty level is calculated by the Federal Poverty Level, or the FPL, and that was developed over 60 years ago, and it only adjusts for inflation, and it doesn't make any adjustments for a local cost of living. So the Public Policy Institute of California developed this California Poverty Measure, which tries to make up for this difference and show the difference in cost of living. So the numbers get a little cut off here, but we see that the 2014 poverty level was around, it was over $23,000 across the nation. But when you adjust this for the cost of living in San Mateo County, it's closer to 36,000. That's a more accurate poverty level. And so that takes our poverty rate in 2014 in the county was 7%, but if we were to use this as our poverty level, the California Poverty Measure, then the poverty rate would be closer to 16%. So you'd see that's a huge jump. It's almost twice as many people, or twice as high percent. So this just shows that the cost of living really makes a difference in the lives of people in poverty. And on a side note, in California, on average, the cost of licensed childcare for one infant and one school-aged child is equal to the annual pay at the poverty level. And we see here that that cost is potentially greater for people in the Bay Area. So this winter, we're only briefly going to talk about housing, and we just wanted to cover this more in depth in spring, because housing is just such a huge issue when you're talking about the cost of living. But for now, we just wanted to introduce you to the term of jobs housing fit, which is the ratio of low-wage jobs to affordable housing units in a region. So we have this chart is in our on our website. And it just shows locally in a few cities within the county, and then also comparing to San Francisco, what that ratio looks like. So just for example, in San Francisco, South San Francisco, it actually has one of the lower job ratio, or one of the lower ratios. And it's at about 5.7. So that means that it takes 5.7 low income jobs for each unit of affordable housing. And so that means that they would need over 2,000 more affordable units in order to reach a job housing fit of 2. That means 2 people in one unit of housing. This map also is another way of looking at the jobs housing fit. So any area here that is pink or red has a ratio of 4 or higher. So that's above 2, which is kind of your ideal. And we can see that this covers most of San Mateo County. The few areas that have a lower jobs housing ratio are Pacifica, East Palo Alto, and Brisbane. Before we move on to our guest speakers, I'd like to give a quick overview of gentrification and displacement. As you're all aware, I'm sure, our local economy has flourished since 2008. And as the population outpaces the number of available housing units, pressure on the housing market causes home values and rental prices to increase, and this puts stress on many low-income residents and often forces them to leave where they live or move to more expensive areas or double up on housing. So reports show that in San Mateo County, it has the highest rate of gentrification and displacement in the entire Bay Area as of 2015. 28% of the county has undergone advanced gentrification or displacement compared to 22% for the region. And an additional 28% of San Mateo County is at risk. So this image is taken from the UC Berkeley Urban Displacement Project, and it shows areas that are experiencing displacement or gentrification as well as exclusion of low-income residents. And we have a link to this on our website if you want to take a closer look at it. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and welcome you to contact me if you have any questions or any suggestions on things that we should research going forward.